Ready? 20
But yeah,
Ready? Mayor?
That's what he said.
Ready?
Ready to go? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 18th meeting. Is there someone here from the Ministerial Alliance? I'm going to pull on her ear this week. If not, Matthew, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do not have any public hearings scheduled for tonight. We do have one special presentation. Sandra Laurie for representing RREC.
Good afternoon. I guess good evening. I just wanted to give you a quick update on some of the things that we're working on right now and what's going on in economic development world. Okay. First of all, I'm going to just give you a really quick rundown on the business recruitment activity. So far this quarter, we have had 9 total requests for information, meaning potential projects. And of those, 8 of them were looking for existing buildings, and 3 of them actually said they would look for existing buildings or building sites, which is, I haven't seen that for quite a while, that they're beginning to realize that the building stock is really low, and they're beginning to think, okay, maybe we're going to have to look about building. And then there was one in particular that said they were looking for a building site specifically. Of those, there were 2 that we met some of their other met the requirements, and we were able to submit a proposal to them to consider. And one of them, they took a look at us, and unfortunately we didn't make the cut for the site visit. They have actually, it's a very fast project, and they have announced they're going to be in Moberly. And we weren't considered for the other one at all. We didn't meet their requirements. Actually, this is up almost 50% as far as activity level from last year, so that's encouraging that there are some more companies out there looking around and potentially to come our way. But we are forging forward with other things as well as business recruitment, and there are a couple things that we are now doing to support the economic growth of our community. One is to support existing businesses. Actually, statistically, 80% of all new jobs come from existing businesses. It's just that it comes very slowly, and you don't often always hear about it unless they do it in a great big expansion. There'll be 1 or 2 here and 3 or 4 here, but that's really where most of your growth comes from. So we are trying to be more proactive in assisting those companies in ways, for example, when we worked with Brewer Science on the issue of the insurance rating for the airport industrial park that was giving them some real heartburn over their insurance capability of getting new insurance proposals. And through the bringing everybody together, the Vichy Volunteer Department, and our great work of Ron Smith, our fire chief, who really led the way in making sure that they could do the things that they needed to do to try to get that rating down. And they went from a 9 rating, which on a 1 to 10, and 10 is not the good side. They went down to a 5, so that was really exciting. And again, kudos to Ron for all of the good work that you did. Okay. One of the other things that we're doing to try to assist our current businesses, as you all know, that employee retention and attraction is more and more difficult all the time due to the shrinking workforce. And shrinking unemployment rate. So many times companies don't know where they have to be in order to compete as far as wage and benefits. So we have contracted with a company to do a very in-depth wage and benefit survey for us, and along with that, they will be asking questions about what are the positions that they have the most difficulty in hiring for, which positions stay open the longest, so that we can take a look at that and maybe work with our workforce and workforce development folks, as well as RTI and those type of organizations, to see what we can do to help fill that gap. That survey should be going out in the next 30 days. We're actually sending them to as many and all businesses as we can in the Rolla, St. James area, including retail. And then we're reaching out even farther into some of the surrounding counties for the production and manufacturing businesses, because certainly our employees travel, those distances. So that's, again, one of the other things that we're doing to help assist with our existing businesses. One of the other things that we are doing is looking to see what we can do to give greater support to entrepreneurs in the area. Now, we're not duplicating services. The Small Business and Technology Development Center from Missouri S&T does a great job as far as providing assistance and training and support for those type of things. But when we were talking, they said that really one of the major needs is financing for small businesses for getting off the ground. From the outside, it may not make sense, but actually businesses don't like making really small loans. It's like the $500 to $2,500 to $20,000, $30,000. Costs them just as much money to do all the paperwork as it does a $500,000 loan, and they don't make as much money off of them. So those are called micro loans. And I've discovered an organization called Justine Peterson LLC out of St. Louis, which is an SBA intermediary, which means that they are a conduit for small business loans from the federal government, and they will handle all of the loan administration and assume all of the risk for those micro loans, which is a good thing, but the bad thing is there are very limited funds. Everyone's competing for all of those funds that come down from the feds. So we are now exploring a possibility of becoming what they call a community partner, which is the community as a whole comes together and makes a loan to Justine Peterson. They then do exactly the same thing. They handle all the administrative work. They assume all the risk and loan those dollars back to small businesses in our community. So we're, again, as I said, exploring this, making sure that there is enough of a demand for that, and then we'll go farther with trying to bring that pool together. So I'm really excited about that potential. And those would be loans for any and all types of small businesses, not just technology, but the sandwich shop that wants to open or something like that. And then the last thing to tell you about is the support we continue to give to transportation. And we have hosted the Missouri Department of Transportation Highway Commissioners now for 3 times. This will be the 3rd time in 6 years, which I'm very proud to say that they have accepted our invitation again. It's an important piece for us to do because it helps strengthen those relationships with MoDOT. They will be holding their meetings here on June 5th. We will be doing a reception the evening of the 4th, which I'm sure you'll all receive invitation for. And again, they only do 6 of these a year outside of their offices in Jeff City. So it was a great thing to be able to get them back here again. That's pretty much all of that we've been working on, other than I am assisting our exec board in getting ready to for our search for the new director, which we will probably get started officially this summer. So with that, that's what I have to report to you this evening, and I thank you. And yes.
Quick question, Sandra, on the, if business contacts us and wants to know about if we have any existing buildings, is their time frame pretty short? Is that why we're not able to say, hey, maybe we could build you a building?
It's two things. One, it is usually they're on a short time frame, but two, existing building, new construction is so much higher priced, so it runs the cost of the project up considerably. So that's the reason.
John, if you have to rate, a priority from what we have to at least have to the ideal, the first would be raw land. The second is a certified building site. So that is a piece of raw land that has infrastructure in, environmental assessments have been done on it and blessed off and so on and so forth. The next one would be a virtual building that would be assigned to that particular site. So a computer modeling, if you will. The next one would be obviously a full-scale building. That last one is extremely expensive and extremely risky. So there's not that many people that are going to want to put a building out there betting on the come, and could be years and years till you see your return. And then what if you guessed wrong on the height of the ceiling and the number of bays and things like that? So we're starting here and working towards here, but recognizing our resources is putting us in the certified site virtual building category.
But I wonder if we would be willing to build something to bring after they committed.
Oh yeah, after they committed.
Like if they committed.
We have the resources, folks, that will come together and would build and do a lease back, that type of thing.
Yeah, let's define we. We is not the city.
Not the city and not the
RRC,
but the community does.
We would be private people in the community.
Yes, yes. There are those that have said, yes, if you bring me a project that they need a building specifically and it's a viable company,
right.
That they would put together the funds to build it and lease back, because oftentimes that's the best business model for them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of the projects that came to us, can you give an idea of just the square footage they were looking for, the ceiling height, just a ballpark, so that we kind of know what they were looking for?
The ones that we weren't able to submit for, if I can recall, most of them were quite large, in the 100 to 250,000 square foot. Some of them got very specific, like they were wanting something that was had refrigeration or had freezer space. So that's something you're not going to build. That's going to be an existing building.
Right.
If you were going to build a spec building, what did DED tell us? 20-foot ceilings and 50,000 square foot.
Yeah.
20?
Yeah, 20 at least.
I was going to say, a lot of people want 30 now.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That's a lot of money
Yes,
to put out there. So.
Yeah, it is. It's a very difficult choice to make that kind of a commitment on a building. There used to be some programs through this CDBG where they helped communities with that type of thing, but they've done away with those dollars. And again, it's a roll of the dice. Are you going to put up the right size? Is it going to meet the requirements?
Right.
And that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
David?
I just want to make a quick comment that I appreciate that you added the statistic about the 80% of all new jobs come from existing businesses, in the sense that a lot of times we think about bringing in a large, manufacturing industrial thing that's going to have a lot of new jobs, but that's a place we can focus is the businesses that already exist and helping them increase their job force. So.
Exactly. It's a very important component for us, for every community.
The small business or the SBA loans that if we could develop the pool to loan money for entrepreneurs, would that be also possible for people who wanted to expand their small business? Are they entrepreneurs
I'm not
too?
sure about how. I would imagine it would be. It'd be like any small business that needs to make a loan that is that small. That's under that amount that local lenders don't want to deal with.
That could be a selling point to our small business community too.
Yes.
You know that.
Yeah. I can't see why they wouldn't apply as well.
Cindy, just to clarify, the micro program we're talking about is local money.
Yes, it would be.
Right.
Local.
So local, I hate to put the banks on the spot, but they would put money into an entity, and then Justin Peterson would essentially administer that. They would also take the risk. But this money is not coming from Jeff City or Washington or anything
It would
like
be
that.
local
Money.
Partners that would do that. It would be a loan. They would receive it back with an interest. But it's some of those type of things that banks generally have a requirement to do so much for a community to get, and it would be something that would fall within those parameters. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Moving on to old business, first item is an ordinance amending section 2798 relating to parking.
So at the last council meeting, we discussed that we've received a request from the business owner of the downtown barber shop requesting to change some parking in that area from 2-hour parking to 1-hour parking between 10th and 11th Street on Pine, just on the east side. So after the council meeting, I went and met with adjacent property owners, and most of the property owners on the other side of the street did receive 2 letters in opposition from the adjacent property owners to that original ordinance. So the ordinance you have in your packet is revised. The ordinance in the packet would keep it 2-hour parking in front of Ace Properties and MK Legal Planning, which is who we received the opposition letters from, and then would make the other 4 spots in that block 1 hour.
Can you put this on the overhead for the public? Sure. Thank you.
Can you help me out with that one? Yep. So depicted in the picture here, so Ace Property Solutions is the one we received the letters of opposition from. So we would not be making any changes to parking there. The changes would be up in front of the Bips and barber shop, changing that from 2-hour to 1-hour parking, and then a half-hour parking in front of Bips to 1-hour parking. So after I revised the ordinance, I shared that with Ace Property Solutions and MK Legal Planning, and I received an email back that they were not, or in opposition of that ordinance also. So if council wanted to move forward, we'd be looking for a motion to amend the original ordinance to the one that's in your packet.
Even after they were or they were not interested when you talked to them again?
They were opposed to both ordinances.
Okay.
What was their reason for being opposed to the amended ordinance?
I'll read you the email. It is still our preference that the spots all remain 2-hour parking. It is not uncommon for our clients to use other spots on the block, not just in front of our building. Patrons of these businesses on Pine Street will oftentimes park in any available spots on our block or even surrounding blocks. Therefore, I think it'd be a disadvantage to the rest of us. Thanks.
I went by there today and
Okay.
to check, it was a nice day, albeit it was a Monday and the barber shop wasn't open, but there were numerous parking spots. There were 2 cars parked on that east side of Pine Street between 11th and 10th Street. Several open on the other side. I kind of cruised around downtown. There's mostly 2-hour parking. There's a few
Yes.
half-hour spots.
Yeah, the majority of the parking in Pine Street's 2-hour.
But and a lot of unrestricted parking spaces on side streets.
On side streets, correct. Mhm.
I just thought, during the work week, Monday through Friday, barbershops aren't open on Monday typically. That's going to liquidate the potential for, where it wouldn't really be needed. I kind of hesitate to change it.
I just want to make a comment that I had spoken also with, I think, some of the folks that were opposed to it.
Okay.
And they had expressed the same thing, that a lot of their appointments are longer than 2 hours. And, seeing in the letter that looks like the people that are being supported in this letter that they wrote is property 1000A, 1000B, 1000E, and then suites E1 through E8 and suites 1A through 16P. So I don't know how many total businesses that is. But my concern is just that we're looking at the barbershop, it sounds like was the main one that had approached the city. Correct. Which is a business that, we want to consider their concerns, and they have a concern that they'd like to have 1 hour parking. But then it looks like we have somewhere between 4 and 10 or 12 or 15 other businesses from what's being stated in this letter that I'm not sure how many suites total there are, how many businesses there are, but at least
what I'm aware of is there's the MK Legal Planning, there's Legal Services business.
Legal Services of Missouri.
Yeah, and then
residential.
A residential area above.
So I think that's all representing that.
The residential.
That whole block, the ACE Property Solutions property. Those are all descriptions there.
But some of those are different businesses or different entities. Is that correct? I mean, it's not one total entity. I guess my point is whether it's
there's one property owner, there's a whole bunch of residential tenants, and then a couple of commercial tenants would be, I think, be accurate.
So where do the residential tenants park?
There's a parking lot adjacent to Ace Properties. They own this parking lot here.
Okay.
And we really wouldn't want them parking on Pine Street, the residents either.
Darren, I can understand the barber shop. What is the reason for the blue line? So the barber shop is looking to go down to 30 minutes, but why are we looking to change that area that's in blue?
An hour. Yeah, so there's four. So it's 3 spots in the blue that we would be changing from 2 hour to 1 spot, and then this orangish color is a half-hour parking spot in front of Vips. And we spoke with Vips. They didn't need a 30-minute parking spot there. An hour was fine with them.
Okay, I had them reversed. I thought the barber shop was on the other end.
Have we thought about a parking spot for an hour in front of the barber shop? Is that?
I mean, there's more than one person typically in the barber shop when they're open.
Just a comment and then a question. So my first comment is, my office is in the Pine Center, which is just down the street from this. And my office, we have parking spots for all my employees, but many of my employees choose to park on the street, and they almost never have a problem finding a parking spot. So I don't think parking is as big as issue, at least at the Pine Center, that we make it out to be. My second comment is, or question I suppose is, we're asking the parking police to monitor this. How do they go about monitoring these 30 minutes and 1 hour and 2 hours? I mean, essentially, my understanding is he goes around, he marks tires. Does he have a different marking that he uses? Or, I mean, what kind of problems will this create
I would have
for
to ask the chief on
parking?
That. I don't.
I'm sure he has a system.
I mean,
Larry knows when he goes
The way
by
I
the streets.
understand it is he has what's pretty much a 2 hour route. He will mark tires and he'll do the 2 hour route, and when he comes back, those cars are still there 2 hours later. He will ticket them. I asked him about changing it to 1 hour, and he said it wouldn't be a problem. He'd still be able to manage it.
okay, thank you.
And I would like to say I did receive one property owner or business owner suggestion was we review how much our parking tickets are. He felt the fine wasn't big enough to deter someone from, violating the 2 hour parking. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the fine is. But
$10.
$10.
We raised it from 3 to 10 about 5 years ago.
So,
Matt, I have a question. Your employees that you said park on the street, do they park there all day?
Oh yeah, they'll go out and move their car when the parking guy comes around.
The reason I say that is I have been in countless discussions to the point that I'm sick of talking about it regarding parking on Pine Street. And inevitably what comes up is the businesses themselves, their employees, are the ones taking those parking spots.
Yep.
So I would encourage your employees, I encourage you to encourage your employees to use the parking spots. Your parking
Here's the
lots.
thing, Mayor, there's always parking spots available. I've never not been able to park on the street when I want to. So I get there may not be as many as they might like, or you might have to walk a few feet, but the reality is there are parking spots at least around the Pine Center. I can't speak for all of downtown, but I've never had a problem parking there. My employees frequently park there. It's closer to the door. Otherwise, they're parking across the street and having to walk, and that's the issue. They don't want to walk. And, if there's a spot available and they want to park there for 2 hours, they should be allowed to do that.
On my block on Pine Street, we yell at each other if we park on the street. It's on the written rule.
It'll come up again.
Is there no parking regulated on the weekends also? Or is
No.
it just Monday
No.
through
Well-
Friday? Monday through Friday?
8 to 5.
Jody?
Are there any other, is the rest of Pine Street all 2-hour parking, or are there other differences?
For the majority, it's 2 hour. There's a few
Mm-hmm.
30-minute parking spots, I believe, but for the majority of along Pine Street is 2 hours.
The bank has like a 10-minute, I think, or
Could-
15-minute thing, at one spot.
Jonathan?
Your comment about going today, which is the first Monday after the St. Pat's weekend, some of the students are still not coming to class yet. But I walk by there every day. I work over in the Hasselman Alumni House. And there's, the parking there by the barber shop is used often by the students more than the people coming to get their hair cut. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because students can park there, go to class, and get back within the 2 hours. And sometimes they'll get back 2.5 hours if Larry hasn't made his route. But most of the time, I'll go by during the day, during school hours, and all those parking spots are taken, and I look in at Mike and Dennis, and there's nobody in there. So it does affect the business because of how close it is to campus. And just as Matt said, people don't want to walk across the street. The students don't want to walk all the way down from 9th to 12th. I mean, that's 3 blocks. That's a long ways. But they'll walk from 11th to 12th. So that's my 2 cents, is I would say change those to 1 hour if we could.
David?
I just want to make a comment only because that exact thing I brought up to MK Legal and the other folks that I was talking to. Hey, do you guys have a concern that the students are parking there? And they said the opposite, in the sense that it either isn't bothering them or that they felt strongly enough that they need the 2 hours for their clients that it would be a problem for them. So for me, it's more about, if we're going to make the change, like Darren had mentioned, that we should talk to everybody, and if for some reason it seems like more of the folks there don't want it, it's hard to give it there for just one business when the other ones don't. Unless we just do like one spot in front of their place, so they always know at least they got that one spot.
And how do we say no if we do this to the other businesses that may start asking for these
Right.
1 hour spots? I don't want to have to do that all the way down Pine Street.
Right.
You know, the crux of the whole thing is Larry said it, and it has been that way since I have lived here, that the majority of the people that own the damn businesses, they park in front of the business. They're too lazy to park 2 or 3 blocks when they're going to be there all day long, and they only have to walk a half a block to get something to eat. But they'll sit there and leave their car all day in front of their business.
Well, there's only 2 hour parking, so they can't do that.
Sir?
There's only 2 hour parking, so how would they do that?
Well, they used to do it before
Oh,
there was
okay.
2-hour parking.
All right.
How do your employees do it?
Well, they would, if some of them will.
Every 2 hours, they smoke break and go move the car.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Jeez.
We'll see if the gentleman comes by and marks tires every 2 hours, it's going to be a mute subject anyway.
Well, he might not make it if he's got to stay around that one block for the hour
Yeah.
parking the whole time.
My mom was literally just back.
We don't want to admit it, but he's just a part-time employee, so.
Okay, so what's council's pleasure?
Leave it alone.
Well,
You know, most-
we might have to.
Oh, no, it's a final.
We might have to
Sorry.
change it.
Vote on it, bring it up, vote.
How many
Okay, so we're gonna read the final reading on the existing No.
We're gonna have to amend it first, sir.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
Already amended it.
We have to have
We did.
a motion to amend.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion to amend. You want to read the amendment, just so we're clarify what they're voting on?
Well, the amendment, instead of reading the ordinance, I'll read the amendment that the parking on both sections of Pine Street would be 1 hour parking. Is that correct?
That was the original.
No.
No, the
The
amendment is
amendment's
just,
just to do it in front of the
Would be
city
just
building.
in front of barbershop and Vips.
Oh, so it was.
Why
for the
don't you
whole thing?
state the amended version or the change?
Okay, so the amended version is depicted here and then talked about up here. So right now, there's 2 hour parking in front of the barber shop and 30-minute parking in front of Vips. The amended proposal would be to make the barber shop in front of it 1 hour, 1 hour in front of Vips, and the area in front of Ace Property Solutions would stay 2 hour as it is now.
Okay. So that's what the amended motion would be if you choose. Is there still a motion and second?
yes.
Who was the second? Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Can we have the final reading?
An ordinance amending sections 27-98, 27-101, and 27-118 of the general ordinances of the City of Rolla, Missouri, known as the Code of City of Rolla, Missouri, relating to parking as amended.
Move proposed orders pass.
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Eberly,
No.
Murphy,
No.
Williams,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Henry,
Yes.
Crow,
No.
Schott,
No.
Roder,
Yes.
6 ayes and 5 nays.
Ordinance is approved. Moving on to the next item is an ordinance authorizing me to enter into a contract with NB West for micro paving.
So at the last council meeting, council awarded the bid, the NB, what was the
NB West.
NB West? I thought, did you say micropaving though?
No, I'm sorry, asphalt.
Okay, that's where you got me tripped up, Mayor, sorry. The NB West for 2019 Phase 2 asphalt improvements. The bid was for $172,290.90. We're asking for a final reading of the ordinance to authorize the mayor into a contract for that amount.
Any questions for Darren?
I have a question. What would cause the difference in the unit price for the TAC? To be $4.50 with West and then $1 for the other company and $2.50. Is it the same quality? Are they all offering the same quality? Or?
They're all offering the same quantity or quality. My guess is if you look at like Pierce, their asphalt price is just a little bit higher. They're probably putting some of the money, for the installation of the TAC or something in with the asphalt as opposed on that line item. That'd be my guess. But yeah, they're all bidding. It's same spec on the TAC. We require a certain type. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, final reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor, City of Rolla, Missouri, to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the City of Rolla, Missouri and NB West Contracting Company for a 2019 Phase 2 asphalt improvements, Project 482.
Proposed orders pass.
Second.
Motion made and second. Roll call vote.
Hines,
Yes.
Roder,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
11 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Moving on to new business. First item is an ordinance ratifying an ordinance to adopt the 2018 International Building Codes.
Yes, back in December of 18, council approved the ordinance to adopt the 2018 IBC codes and the codes that go along with them. Per section 67-280 of the Missouri Revised Statute, there's a requirement to post these for examination at the clerk's office for 90 days prior to enacting. And this is an ordinance to ratify that previous ordinance.
And Steve, I think we're just asking for a first reading
Yes.
tonight and bring it back for final.
Yes, we started on the 19th of posting it, so our 90 days will not be until actually tomorrow. So we'll bring it back for the final reading on August or April 1st, and then we'll enact the codes then.
Any questions for Steve?
Did anybody come into your office to?
One person.
One person?
I think we pretty well let everybody know what the codes were, and so I don't think there's been a whole lot of questions about it.
No other questions? First reading, please.
An ordinance ratifying the updates to the 2018 IBC International Building Codes approved by ordinance number 4454 dated December 17, 2018, following the 90-day notice period.
Before I go ahead, I want to take a step back here. I made a mistake on that second to the last ordinance on the parking. In order for an ordinance to pass, it takes the majority of the council, which means it would have had to take 7 affirmative votes. So that motion and ordinance failed. Next item is information regarding changes in the sanitation and recycling rules.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I just wanted to take a couple minutes to make you all aware of some planned scheduling changes that we have pending for residential collection routes. And this has been building for some time, and we've needed to do this for a couple of years, but I never really like to disrupt collection schedules if we can avoid it. But through annexations, new developments and expansions, we've had certain areas of town grow disproportionately, so we've gotten to the point where we have some overloaded days of collection and some others are lighter, so I'm just wanting to balance out our workload, avoid some overtime, and build some equity back into the collection routes. And while this is probably needed to be done for a couple of years, I've been procrastinating because I always hear this voice in my head that I was given advice many, many years ago when I first got into this business, and it was good advice, but I was a young guy and working in local government, and the deputy mayor sat me down in his office and he said, "Brady, you'll do fine in this business if you remember these 2 things. First of all, never mess with people's taxes, and secondly, never mess with their trash collection schedule." But here I am, and in this business, inevitably, we have to mess with both of those things, so whether we like it or not. So, if I could put these on the overhead, it'd be easier to show than tell. Does that have a glare on it? Ultimately, there's 3 distinct areas that we're going to change their collection schedule, and primarily we're taking a few hundred houses off of the Tuesday collection route and shifting those to Thursday with one exception. And ultimately, this is going to impact about 450 residences. The first area that we're looking at here, just to help you get orientated here, this is going to be the courthouse right here. So this is going to be 3rd Street, 4th Street, and 5th Street over to Walnut. It's about a 10 or 12 block area there. Roughly 75 residences that will be changed from a Monday collection to the Thursday collection. And I believe that will impact folks in Ward 1. Secondly, an easier one to describe, this is Wellington Drive, which is just more or less a circle loop drive out off of East 10th Street. This will impact 74 residences out there. They'll be changing from a Tuesday collection to a Friday collection. That affects Ward 2. And then last but not least, a larger area coming off of our Tuesday collection route. Highway 72 runs along here. On the western border here, you'll see Walnut Street. To the north or northeast is Salem Avenue. Salem Avenue is not included in the change. Both sides of Salem Avenue, including the dead end of Jean Drive there, are picked up on a Friday. But down here south of 72, you'll see Veterans Park. So you have these neighborhoods of Green Acres and Pete Avenue and Sharon Drive and so forth that'll be changed, as well as Rolla Gardens area, all the way down to where Salem meets 72, and those folks will be changed from a Tuesday to a Thursday pickup as well. There's about 310 homes in that area that will be impacted.
All of these individual homes will be visited by myself and my staff to be notified. We've started today. We hit the area 3rd, 4th, and 5th Street and put door hangers on the doors where we couldn't raise a resident at home to talk to them personally, so everybody will be notified. And it's been in the paper, although it wasn't very clear images. It's been on Facebook. It's on our website. So we're getting the word out as best we can, and we'll work with everybody who forgot or was unaware of the changes. Again, these will go into effect April 1st, so we've got a couple weeks yet. Questions?
I was just going to ask you, I don't know if you got the manpower for that, but I'd say if, like, say when this does go into effect, you see somebody that used to be a Tuesday put out their trash on Tuesday, if like they would get a notification to know that it's actually Thursday, because maybe they didn't figure it out or I guess forgot, but hopefully they'll see their neighbors putting it out the right day or something.
Yeah, well, we do have the part-time enforcement officer who goes around, you know, and makes sure that everybody's carts pulled back or not put out on the wrong day. So that individual will definitely be working with these folks, and we won't be looking to slap anybody on the hand. We just want to inform everybody and make a smooth transition. Sir?
On the enforcement of the receptacles, you had pretty good luck with it?
Real good luck. We've really seen good compliance. I'm happy to say we haven't written any tickets. There's been multiple 5-day notices, but once that goes out to the tenant and the property owner, we've had compliance, and we're really just working hard to work with people to educate them and get that voluntary compliance before we have to be the heavy. But I think, and hopefully you've all noticed a great improvement around town with that.
Yeah.
I think our biggest challenge is the student population when they're moving in and out. That's when we see our biggest issue, and we end up going back to the same addresses where we've given them a warning just months before, but when it's the turnover of the semester, it's difficult for us to know if it's the same tenant, if we're dealing with the same person, so we kind of go back and start over with the first warning at that point. Other questions?
I just had a separate question. Can you remind everybody when the spring cleanup?
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to do that.
I was, but
Okay.
I wanted to make sure we handled all the questions on the scheduling changes. A plug for the citywide cleanup, it'll be Saturday, April the 6th. Our crews will start early that morning by 6 a.m., so we ask everybody to put the things out the night before. Certainly not a lot earlier than that. You know, if they start putting them out a week early, we see a lot of scavenging, and they wreck the stuff at the piles, and they make a bigger mess for us than is necessary. So, again, the things that we'll not take on those days are regulated items. Those include tires, major appliances, yard waste. We don't typically empty the rollout carts on that day. But bulk items, furniture, bagged and boxed trash, we'll take all of that. And of course, liquid chemicals we cannot take. We have other means for that, so if folks have questions or needs for that type of thing, they can contact us. We do have a residential household hazardous waste program.
Brady, you used to have for paint, if the lid was off and it was dried out, would someone be able to put it out for the 6th, or even if they dried it out, it doesn't matter?
If they solidify it, we can take it on the 6th. And if they solidify it, they can put it in their normal trash, and I recommend just cheap kitty litter or sawdust to stir it in a partial can of paint and dispose of it that way. Oil-based products, stains, lacquers, paints, we can take through our Haz Waste program by appointment. And you know, the latex, it's not hazardous, but boy, it sure makes a mess when a Packer truck hits that can and it squirts all over the street or parked cars, that sort of thing. So we don't like to pack up liquids of any kind. So if you have something like that, you need to get rid of. Harsh chemicals, yes, please don't put those in a Packer truck. That's bad for a variety of reasons, but we have other means of handling those things if you need to get rid of those.
Electronics, TVs, computers, printers,
those all can go out on the 6th. Of course, those are all, as you know, sir, highly recyclable, so.
I'm setting you up here. I give you a silver platter.
That's nice. Well done. We can take those at the recycling center Monday through Friday. The televisions, depending on the type and the size, there are some fees for those, but they are still, at this point, not regulated, although there's been legislative efforts to change that. Even CRTs are not regulated yet, so they can go in the normal trash. We can pick them up on Saturday.
Good job being proactive with it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next item is considering a resolution considering a notice of termination for Myrma coverage.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I forget, let me introduce a couple of gentlemen that are here from Myrma. We've seen Kelly before. Myrma is our pool for insurance purposes, but Kelly and Patrick have been partners of the city and RMU for many, many years, and so they're obviously concerned about this issue and wanted to be here. So if there are any questions that I don't touch on or that you'd like to ask them, feel free to do that when we get through. This is an issue that we talk about every year at budget. We point out what our assessment is, and if you remember, our combined work comp, liability, and property coverage is rolled into a program, this pool of 80 municipal cities and what I'll call affiliates, things like RMU and other utility companies, for purposes of providing that service. And we get assessed that on a per $100 personnel cost. Has worked out well. The city of Rolla and RMU were a couple of the key members in 1981 of the formation of Myrma, primarily because the private market at that time was drying up and they just weren't interested in investing in the utilities, predominantly because of the natural gas and other utilities. That was just a risk that at the time the market got soft on, and so cities went out there and scrambled to try and find some provision. So Rolla and RMU have been members since 1981. It is a group operated by a board of directors elected by the membership. Rolla and RMU have served in that board capacity for many, many years over the almost 40 years of service, and it has worked out very, very well. The only opportunity came along, and over the years, Stephanie and I have met with other companies who have asked to give an opportunity to bid on the city's insurance services, and quite frankly, it's kind of easy to say, sorry, we're with Myrma, provide great service, we're a long-term member there, and we haven't gone through the work of giving them the information to go out and get a quote. And so about a year and a half ago, just knowing how tight budgets are, we started talking with a firm who is pursuing us very aggressively. Olis Acres Arnie is the broker company, but quite frankly, there's a half dozen good brokers out there saying, look, we think the market has really come back. There's a lot of interest in coming back into well-run cities, and we think Rolla would be a really great opportunity to go out on the market. So last year, we started doing some of the work. It really wasn't timely enough to try and do something in the spring. We spent much of the fall supplying them with information on our losses, on our assets, on our training programs, just lots of information. Of course, everything we do is fairly public, and we will share that with anybody that requests that kind of information. And about 6 weeks ago, in a follow-up meeting, they came down and said, okay, what's it going to really take for you all to seriously look at leaving Myrma? They said, would you leave it for $50,000 a year? This is a bill that's about $750,000 a year out of our $27 million budget, so it's not an inexpensive bill that we pay each year. And I said, quite frankly, we wouldn't leave for $50,000. They said, would you leave for $75,000? I said, I don't think I'd recommend council we'd leave for $75,000. When they said, what about a six-figure savings? I said, I got to consider it, and I have to bring that to city council for conversation. And so that sort of took it to the level where we were able to sit down with them, and then they actually brought out some underwriters, Travelers and Missouri Employers Mutual in particular, came and toured some of our facilities, got more information, came back with it's not a proposal, they came back with a preliminary cost estimate that would save us somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 a year in our combined coverage program. Now, there are 100 variations on every aspect of the coverage. The deductibles, what's included, what's excluded, the endorsements, the airport coverage, which has always been sort of separate. There's a 100 little pieces of all of this that have to get put out on the market to actually take bids and proposals. And that's bids and proposals from brokers who then go to the underwriters and bring the insurance companies to this bid process. We're anticipating a bid process that would be a request for proposals with qualification statement, because we're going to want to be able to match up one company for another. So I think it's a number that we have to give serious consideration to. As I was talking with Myrma and letting them know about this inquiry and this process, I didn't quite understand the deadlines. I knew our program starts on July 1. We pay our bill in, I think it's June each year for the following year. And there had to be a notice, but I didn't realize that notice was a notice of termination, which has to be filed to them by March 31st, and then in which case you go out on the market and you find your other coverage. So that's one way for us to proceed. I've talked with the market. I've talked with cities who have been out there. Quite frankly, they've had good experience going out and shopping their business. The other market is to say, okay, we're going to revisit this next January, February, do proposals earlier, match them up with Myrma's value, and then make a decision at that point. My recommendation at this point is, much as I feel like Myrma has given us great coverage, great service for the years, we are a great member in Myrma, other than a couple of years of some tough work comp experiences. We're usually in that 25% or less claims to premium payment. I have to recommend that we look at the marketplace and see what other pricing is out there. There's a provision under Myrma that if you do leave, that you're not allowed to come back on for another year after that. But Rolla doesn't leave and change our insurance coverages quickly, freely, easily. We've been at one since 1981. So I think we go into this kind of exercise thinking this is going to be a long-term opportunity for somebody. I say long-term, 3 years, 5 years, just have to see how the market goes. We would encourage Myrma, and Myrma I think would definitely express interest in coming back, and every year or two letting us know what our renewal rates would be under their assessment provision, and we can reevaluate whether we want to come back to Myrma. But the reality is the market is ripe for an organization our size to go out there. And so my recommendation is that we entertain the resolution to terminate services with Myrma for a July 1, June 30th, July 1 effective date, and go out on the market. That's going to take a lot of work. We spent a lot of work over the last year evaluating these options, but trying to compare 3 or 6 or 9 other brokers and underwriters over the next 2 months is going to be a bunch of work as well. But we just know the reality of our budget situation. We're facing minimum wage increases. We're facing reserves that have been depleted over the years. We're facing financial needs and compensation, particularly in public sector, along with a lot of other issues. And so this is a number that certainly caught my interest and attention enough to bring this to you for consideration. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And as I said, the gentlemen from Myrma are here and could certainly elaborate on their services. But let me go on record again. The relationship with Myrma has been outstanding for many, many years. This is not about a disappointment, disillusion with their services. We understood what that pool of 80 cities is about. Rolla just happens to be on the upper end of that. It's Rolla, Arnold, Fulton, Mexico. Those are the big cities out there. Then there's a lot of really small ones out there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Daniel?
Okay, so what we would do is we would do a notice of termination, and then we would go out onto the market and search for other policies.
Traditional insurance coverage.
At that point, because of their year-long rule, we would not be able to shop through Myrma, correct?
Correct.
So at that point, we're just saying no to Myrma. How many years have we been with them?
1981.
1981. So if we waited until next year, we would have the rest of this year to shop, and we would come back with a better number, or possibly stick with Myrma. Maybe are they able to match anything like that? I don't know any of that.
Myrma doesn't really have the flexibility. I mean, it's a pool, and they're going to treat all of their members the same, the way they assess that. And you wouldn't get quotes early. The market just doesn't allow you to have, a year's lead time before quotes. But it would be in January or February with the idea of a July 1, 2020 renewal.
Okay.
David?
I was just going to say that it seems to me to make sense. If we were to cancel, same thing, we're in a little bit of a compromised position where those folks know that we're out of the one we're in and we got to take something. It seems like it would compromise us in terms of their proposal, whereas having some on the table January 2020, we would be able to look at the new proposals and the Myrma next to each other. Is that right?
Yes. The only thing I would disagree a little bit with the premise, the market is more than just one insurance provider. there are several that are very anxious to get the business. So they're bidding it not because whether we're a part of Murmur or not. They're going to be hungry and get it. Of course, the risk is, and we've seen this in the health insurance market, we don't want somebody coming in, lowballing it, and then drastic increases the following year. At least the conversation we have with one underwriter is they're willing to sort of commit to a limitation on the second year renewal based on the performance of the group, but those are not assured things, right? We just don't know that. What we do know with Murmur that the rates, what they're going to be in 2019-20, and the history tells us that's going to be a modest increase going forward, and we've been able to manage it very well as a result of that.
I'd like to add two things. No, we don't have a firm quote in hand, but staff has spent an incredible amount of time, so I think it would be wrong to say that we're guessing on these savings.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is $150,000, $175,000 a year is real money. And considering our operating funds are in deficit, in April you'll see our 10-year plan and you're going to see red ink. So I think we need to take that seriously. This is a lot of money.
Just a response to that is, I think it's true it's a savings if on the back end we don't end up having to pay it based on something that's not covered through a new agent that maybe Murmur has some deeper coverage on certain things. And I think it's important to look through those things maybe before we make the decision to say no, because it seems like we'd be in a compromised situation again if we didn't have them in front of us and don't know what the differences in coverages might be in finality, no?
I think staff has put more effort in that than you're suggesting.
Yeah.
I don't think we're at that kind of risk.
Yeah, and we'll be very thorough about the comparison. Again, we have to go out on the market and still, evaluate with those proposals and all the differences within the various underwriters that are out there. So, I can't emphatically say how those numbers are going to come out. We've talked to people in the marketplace. We've talked to cities who do that every year. Again, anybody that's sort of our size and bigger has already found other arrangements for their insurance. We've just grown to be, sort of the big fish, and it's a big part of our budget.
John?
John, what do you think, if you guys talk about all the work you put into this up to this point, is this going to have to happen about every 2 years now, we think now? Is this just going to be part of what you and Stephanie do going forward? If we get out of Murmur, we're going to have to shop insurance every couple of years.
Yeah, I would think we would do it every 3 to 5 years unless we get hit with a renewal premium that requires us to go and shop it, right? And you'll have that in advance. You'll have a few months prior to the actual effective dates for each year, and so the way we'd approach it, if we were not a self-insured health plan, we would be going into those with a 3 to 5 year window. That's how we'd approach it. But your point is that it does take a lot of work to do that. It takes a lot of work initially. It takes a lot of work to do that on renewals. We haven't faced that with Murmur over the years. But
yeah, but in terms of renewals, your first time you have to develop that template.
Yeah.
In subsequent years, you have the template already done.
Yeah.
Jody?
So, in looking through the material that we got, it appeared that there are some things that Murmur gives to the city that are not insurance per se. Access to grants, some certifications, maybe some training things. And I guess I'm wondering that those probably would not be provided out of the market, or no?
No, we've talked with the industry, and they'll provide, it depends on who you go with and what you actually put in place, but many of them have a mechanism based on your performance that they will actually do a credit or a reduction in the following years. They'll do training, they'll do inspections. It depends on the quality of the insurance company and the quality of the broker.
Okay, but that's part of what is factored into
That's
the
correct.
Comparison of leaving Murmur versus going out in the marketplace.
Correct. And Murmur has done that very well with us. Yeah. The city of Washington was the city that I spoke to pretty extensively to try and get a feel for it, and they valued all those same things, and they said we're getting all of that, and in some cases and more. Just different. It's different how they're being delivered, but they're very pleased with what they found in the market.
What's RMU's take on it? Do they have a?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for Rodney, but I shot Rodney a note and said, Rodney, here's the reality. We're looking at this, and he said it's a tough choice. It's a tough call. Murma has been a great partner for years. I think RMU is going to stay with Murma. I don't think they've given any consideration. I'm not sure if they've ever, it'd be up to Rodney and his board, whether they have ever go out and shop that, but I believe they're going to stay. And both entities are rated independently.
As far as excess, I mean, we get some funds back if there's excess premium paid from
Correct.
Murma. Does that happen with, was that part of it?
Again, it depends on who you go with, but underwriters will do that. They will provide an incentive back based on performance. But it depends on which one you go to. That we won't know that until the proposals are submitted and reviewed.
Yeah. I just know my history with health insurance, with a family that's had so many issues that, you're with somebody that treats you good and you've been with them forever. It's really, it would be very trying.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to shop this around every year. It takes way more work to do that.
David?
I just want to make the final point that I agree that I think that we've all realized in our last budget that we need some funds that we don't have, and I think anywhere we can look into things like this and find a place to save some money does make sense. I just wonder, with how long our relationship's been with Murma, that we shouldn't at least give until the January 2020 so that we can ourselves compare again against Murma, and at that point make a decision that's not quite as hasty in terms of dropping real quickly and then having to.
David, you're going to give up $150,000, and essentially you're going to buy an extra month.
I would have liked a little more time to think about it.
I guess my thing is, I agree with you if we are really going to save the 125, but
Let me just clarify.
Right.
If you think that you're going to do work over the next year to make a more educated decision, that's not going to be. So basically, you're going to put this on the shelf, and next January, instead of next March, you will then go to market.
except we would have quotes in front of us when we're deciding. We'd have exact quotes in front of us at the time we're deciding. Is that right? Because we would have them in January. We could look at the two together, I guess my point. And the reason I'm looking at the numbers is I'm looking at the numbers we have in our packets of like 2017. We paid $736,000, but we had $1 million or more based on some of the things that happened. Is that correct?
Sort of. Yeah.
Okay.
In that particular year, both 17 and carry over into 18, there's a large amount of that is being set up in reserve because of the two work comp claims that we have.
Right.
I don't remember the amount. I want to see $400,000 or something like that. So that's actually in that $1.1 million held back. They've paid all the medical claims. They are in final resolution with those two issues, but there's attorneys involved, so you just never know the final result.
Right.
But there were very, very high, very unusual work comp claims that occurred at that time.
If you look over 12 years, it's 80-20. So for everything that we paid, we got back in claims reimbursement 20%.
Right.
For 12 years.
I mean, the only point I was going to make, if we had a year like that was an anomaly, and we'd gone with a new company, we could end up I guess I just want to make the point that we could end up losing the 125 that we thought we gained the next year. Whereas in the Murma pool, we have a little more stability based on having been with them a while and the way that seems to work from the numbers. So I just wanted to make the point that I do agree that saving the 125 sounds good, and I think we should look at it.
Make sure I'm not disagreeing. Let me understand what I think you said. If you have, regardless of who you're with,
right?
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but if you have a bad year, you have a bad year. Doesn't matter who's providing the coverage.
Not with Murma. When you're in that pool, there's not a surcharge for loss.
A rate increase.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And I guess the point is that rate increase could come with a private, and we could have a great year and have no issues, but if we had we could lose our 125 the next year. That's just the point. I just want to look at both sides, and that's why I thought waiting till 2020 might be smart based on our history with Murma.
Jimmy Dale?
Your recommendation, sir?
My recommendation is we go to the market.
Yeah. That's all I need to know.
Any other questions? Can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the notice of termination between the City of Rolla and Mo Intergovernmental Risk Management Association, MIRMA.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Why don't we show of hands? All those in favor of the motion, raise their hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay. The resolution passes. You get the hand count? Yeah, 2 noes. Moving on to the next section, claims and/or fiscal transaction. The first is a motion awarding the bid for micropaving.
So staff asked for and received bids for the 2019 micropaving project. Low bid was Donaldson Construction from Clever, Missouri for $388,814.55. This project would seal approximately 9 miles of city streets. A bid tab is attached. So staff's asking for a motion for a bid award and the first reading of an ordinance to authorize the mayor into a contract with Donaldson Construction for $388,814.55. Also, there's a map in there depicting what streets we're doing.
Darren, what's our oldest, when was our first micropaving job? 15 years?
Steve, can you help me with that one? What's the first year we micropaved? I mean, most of the streets for now we're doing for the second time.
In what year?
2006, he said.
2006. So, looking back on that, was it cost effective?
I mean, most of these streets, if you'll see, there, we do two different types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is a road that we've already done once. So as you can see, most of these roads are coming up on, it's been 8 to 10 years since we've done the first one, and now we're doing the second time. So I think it's very cost effective.
Any questions for Darren?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So we did a bid earlier. There was, it was about $180,000. We had, I think, 4 bidders.
Okay.
On this project, we're close to $400,000. We have 1 bidder.
Correct.
Is there a reason why companies are not bidding on these projects?
So this is a very specialized project. I know of 4 in the whole state that do it.
Okay, so it falls into that. It's not that there's not interest or they can't get the insurance coverage to do the job. It's just there's just not that many people doing it.
There's just not that many people to do this, and this contractor specifically kind of deals on the city government side. The other 3 that I know of are mainly MoDOT contractors. I mean, we reach out to them to bid on this. Sometimes they bid on it, sometimes they don't. This year they did.
Thank you.
Steve, I remember in the very beginning, there was only 1, and I don't know if it was covered by a patent. But in the beginning, those first couple of years, we only had 1 bidder, did we not?
Yeah, he has a proprietary type
application
that he does, but there are other ones out there that just can't.
Right, now.
Now.
But still a small
and in the past, I mean, we allow, the product that we've got here or, any other product, to compete. They just have to turn their specs in. I think if you guys remember, it's probably been a couple years ago, we had another contractor bid, and we chose to award a small contract to them, to try them out, and they have not since bid on our project anymore. But
they have, say that again?
They have not bid on any of our projects since.
Okay.
They did not meet our expectations.
Any other questions for Darren? If not, is there a motion to award the bid to?
I move.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? First reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor, City of Rolla, Missouri, to execute on behalf of the City of Rolla, Missouri, a certain agreement between the City of Rolla, Missouri, and Donaldson Construction Company, LLC, for 2019 micropaving project 480.
Next item is a motion awarding a bid for 2 park department mowers.
We received bids for 2 2019 zero-turning motors, one with a 72-inch mower deck and one with a 60-inch mower deck. For the Parks Department, we threw 4 bids. These replace 2 of our John Deere mowers that we've had for 7 years, and one of them's got over 1,300 hours, 1307, and one's 1388.
We contacted a variety of different companies across the local and regional area for different type mowers, asking for bids, and so we also advertised in the local papers, and these were the 4 that we got. So our recommendation is to go with the low bid from Schaefer Cutter from Owensville, and our old mowers will be transferred to the airport so we can get a little bit more use out of it.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and second to award the bid to Schaefer Cutter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Floyd. Mayor, City Council comments. We have one, which are the goals and objectives for the city administrator for 2019. Are there any questions on the items or the weighings? David?
I just was curious, a little clarification on the back page, I believe it is strategic planning. Number 6, I'm just curious what that is, the draft zoning report on current and possible land use issues in transitional residential areas east of S&T and north of Highway 72.
This, I'll let John give you the details, but this is something we kicked around quite a number of times. Each time certain council people were interested in doing it, other council people didn't want to do it, and that is addressing the area and parking and the development around the university. So, John?
Yeah, and the other ones, they are just north of 72, and it's sort of the idea of going back and looking at some preservation. Years ago, they did a wholesale rezoning, R3, some commercial, and it just didn't factor in the sensitivities to the single-family structures that were still there. So I'll tell you, and even the committee that talked about this one, this was work that really a city planner needs to be working with us on. So we're going to do some work on this. We're going to do some work specific on the medical marijuana issue that's more pressing. The time frame may be adjusted mid-year based on how we progress with our city planner. But it's the idea of trying to go back and looking and being more sensitive in those 2 areas in particular.
Nice. And the other one was number 4, which was just curious about the small housing thing.
We're just hearing the issue, the interest in the small housing, and this could be anything from a converted storage unit, to just these tiny houses, 600 square foot, and there's just a movement going that way, and we don't have anything in the rules that would allow it.
Right.
You could do it, I guess, under a PUD, but that's not really if somebody's coming along with a single opportunity. So it was really about trying to get that issue more on the planning's perspective.
Okay,
I think with all 3 of those, David, we don't want to wait till there's something in front of us. We kind of want to stay ahead of it.
Yep, sounds great. Yeah. Thank you.
Jimmy Dale?
Does this cover the area that was blanket zone C4 zone?
Yeah, I think C2, the area sort of south of the courthouse. Yeah, C2, C3. It's kind of just a random, and then the other one's the area just west of Holloway, really all the way with the tracks. It was all done almost universally as R3, and that's allowed sort of this conflict between a single-family rental property and what's become a large multifamily, and just trying to be more sensitive about a transitional zoning in those areas.
There's a lot of houses down there. Yeah. Small houses down in that area.
Yeah.
I'll ask also that the committee will review John in 6 months, just to check his progress. But sometimes what happens when we put a big list of goals like this, priorities change, things happen, and then we get to the end of the year and he said, well, that wasn't done because circumstances changed or council changed priorities. So by doing it in 6 months, he can measure himself on a yardstick, and we could also make adjustments and redirect him if need be.
Mayor?
Yes.
One other question. Where are we at in getting John some help?
We're pretty far away.
We'll talk about it
we have to recruit you. You may have to retire just going to work with John. I won't pay very good, but I mean...
The 10-year fiscal plan is essentially done, okay? It's going now through some tweaks and presentation, if you will. Because I think when we present that to council, although you're the principal audience, the reality of it is the audience is out there that night. Things that we show, things that we discuss. So we want to make sure it's presented in the right context. And we're to the point now with quite a number of council seats that are coming up here in April. We just decided to move it to the next council rather than spend a 2, 3, 4 hour night going through all those numbers. But what you'll see in there is a lot. And the community and the council is going to have to pick and choose priorities, because most of the things that we have heard you discuss as to wanting to be addressed can't be done. So that's the reality.
Who's on the committee, on the city council, any city council?
There is no committee for this. The committee I was referring to was John's goals and objectives.
Okay, but the 20 or the 10-year.
Right, that'll be the,
That's
we'll first present that to the, we call it the audit committee, finance
Finance Audit
committee.
Committee.
Yeah, finance audit committee. Which I thought frankly was you.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay. And I think Jonathan was the other one, so yeah, you'll see an early snapshot of it. We're not paying you enough to remember, huh? Any other questions? Any other city council comment? Yes.
Just a quick one for thanks to all the city employees, especially the fire staff and police staff for this weekend in terms of all that they did, keeping everybody safe, and thanks again for all you did.
Daniel?
I'd like to thank Steve Hargis and his crew. We had some pretty nasty, demeaning graffiti that found its way over in one of our wards, and they got it off there and cleaned it up just about as fast as they could. And I'm just really grateful because that really got into some people's feelings about that. I'm grateful you guys got out there and took care of it.
Was it on homes or sidewalks?
I had a sidewalk in front of a Dollar General by Price Chopper that had some.
It's kind of a good reminder, because we adopted maybe 10 years ago really a zero tolerance on that. We often don't see it, but if people see the strangest markings, whether that's on a utility pole, electric box, we'll see them on bridge abutments, we'll get on them within days, because if it stays at all, it just grows. And so with your all eyes and the eyes from the community, we've done a really effective job of getting on them quickly. So you'll see that response from Public Works, Parks, Public Safety, whenever those surface, but we just don't see them often. So thanks for reporting that, and just encourage you, as you see that something looks strange, it probably is a gang symbol or a wannabe gang symbol, and we just want to nip it early.
Years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but the police department had a workshop. You know, this stuff looked like junk on the wall, junk on the bridges, but I didn't have an appreciation of what those symbols meant. So we don't want to fool around with that stuff when we
This
see
one was
it.
pretty rough.
Yeah. Was that what this was?
It was really rough. I'd rather not repeat it right now, but if you'd like to talk.
Okay. Any other, citizen comments? Is there anyone that would like to speak to council? Comments for the good of the order? Jimmy Dale's getting antsy. There's no closed sessions. So,
What was that there?
meeting adjourned.
Help me.
I saw you in my peripheral vision.
Oh, yeah.
On the mount.
Yeah.
This was believe me,
I'm still working.
You know, and I should know by now.
I'm still working.
It never dawns on me.
They're trying to make it
Right. I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean.
Driving myself.
That's my
Slave driving myself. About it.
if I was getting
How
any
about this?
vibe from
There's the goals and there's the
vast
facts.
majority of cities out there that aren't
I'm
in the
looking at this
pool.
one, I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, maybe like you said, when you're this size, it's more risky.
No.
That doesn't.
No, that's
You
part of
expect
it.
the trips I found in my drawer.
We didn't give the example, but
With this
sewer
one-
backup plans.
With this
You
one,
We have zero.